then we'll crack on. So that lovely sound means that we're back on. We're back on the podcast. This is episode 18. We are recording this on the 1st of July. It's quite sunny down here in Staffordshire at the moment. 1st of July, so it's another month gone. Still a bit more time to the 19th. Furlough starts to finish today for lots of those working in the pub and club industry. So I don't know how they're going to go on. And we're back. We're back together. It's been a week or so since we were together. So evening, Bruce.
Evening, Michael. Evening, Nick.
Bruce had a quite stressful week with lots of COVID pings again. In fact, not Bruce's time. So we did think this would be quite a big one. So again, this will be a two-parter. So we're giving Bruce not the night off because he's going to chip in, but Bruce's 5 pubs we will do in the part B. Nicholas has been away and enjoying a few not quite sunny days, I don't think. Nick in the Cotswolds, and I think you've had a few beery adventures down there.
It was dry. That was the main thing. Beery adventures, yeah, not a great amount, just maybe one or two pints during the day, and then 2 or 3 in the hotel. But unfortunately, the choice isn't there yet. You know, once again, I think demand as a player is still an issue, and I think staff is still an issue as well. So they're sticking to maybe, you know, even though I was searching out pubs and bars that should have real ale, they're very much just 1 or 2 choices. Found that a lot of the Green King pubs, and even we stopped off at Weatherspoons in Buxted yesterday, and they were the same. There was nothing exciting, nothing regional on the bar, which was a shame. But there we are. We know what the situation is at the moment.
Certainly, cask ale, definitely. Most of the places I've been last couple of weeks, there's only been 1 cask on, and you know, and often that was one of the bloody macros like Doom Bar. Keg seems to be fine, and to be honest with you, I've just been going to our local kind of micro beer places that have got loads of kegs on. They sometimes do a couple of casks, but again, they've just not got. So they just can't get hold of cask at the moment. So it's just
your keg's got 2, 3, 4 months on it. Your cask's got 6 weeks on it. So once again, the way the figures are going up again now, who's to say that even though we're all supposed to be free in July, it'll get to beginning of August, and then we're going to be told, right, you know, pubs are closing, and God knows what else is happening again.
And of course, a lot of pubs,
they're throwing beer away again. So
and a lot of pubs kind of obviously move completely, you know, swivel round and would move to keg and bottling and canning and close some of their cask lines down. And I guess it takes time, doesn't it, to reconfigure all of that. They couldn't sell cask during lockdown, so they quite rightly went across to the other formats of beer. And I guess it just takes some time to come back out of that again. And I think you're right, Nick. It's still a bit of an unknown, isn't it? It's you know. It'd be interesting to see the impact of the football, apart from obviously all the Scottish people getting COVID in London. But you know, whether there's more people staying at home and drinking at home, which seems to be certainly around here.
I think, definitely. So you know, like you're saying, bottles and cans. I would think most of the breweries are still concentrating on that rather than putting the beer into casks. Definitely.
Yeah.
We were in out now on a stag day for the first time in about, I don't know, almost 15, 20 years on Saturday. So it was getting married, and we had quite a good pew early on outside the judges' lodgings. And you could see all the crowds of people going by, but about 2 or 3 o'clock, you could noticeably see it declining, where normally it'd be a huge, massive humanity. And I think that initial rush from the pent-up demand's gone now. Undoubtedly, people aren't going out like they were, anything like they, you know, in the same numbers. Especially young people, I suppose. Who can blame them, really?
I'm daddy, so.
And the other thing as well is what was the massive staffing issues in York now. The old Bank pub, I noticed that was closed the other Sunday with staff signs on. We tried to book breakfast at Tom Hawk's Steakhouse on Saturday, and was it on the website? We rung up and said, "Oh, we booked breakfast on the website." She goes, "Not serving breakfast because we had to concertina the staff for lunch and dinner." And you know, so it's
I think it's also the price as well. You know, it's noticeable. I mean, all right, we're down the Cotswolds; it's a tourist place, but you know. Once upon a time, I would have been moaning buckets full having to pay nearly £4 for a pint. And now I've almost accepted it. You know, and I'm quite fortunate I can sort of afford that. But once again, I would think most people, pre-lockdown, when they were paying £3.30, £3.40 for a pint, and now they're being asked to pay another 60 pence. And I'm not blaming the pubs, you know, they've got a lot. cash to claw back.
Yeah.
But if all of a sudden going out midweek for 2 or 3 pints is costing you getting on for 15 quid, then I think that's another thing that's going to affect the business and the trade really.
I mean, I've been out last couple of weeks with Simon and Sarah, friends of ours, and me and Sam we were averaging last week. We think we've been paying £6 a pint where we've been going for the last couple of weeks on average. There are a few beers in the craft bars that are £4.50, but most pints are £6 odd. I mean, up to £7-8 a pint people are kind of buying. And again, I think I mentioned last time, but I've just joined the Thornbridge Beer Club mainly because they've just dropped their monthly back price down from £40 to £30. You get the same,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Same amount of beer, but they're saying they think there's going to. Well, they were trying to think there was going to be the opposite shit, that people would stop going to buy in beer in bulk and go out a bit more, and so that's why they dropped their price. So I think you're right, but for 30 quid for the beer that you get, I've just seen what you're going to get in the next one, and it's a great selection of beers. And I've been to Thornbridge since again. So, okay, Nick, what are you drinking tonight?
So being down in the Cotswold, we were fortunate to go to the Hook Norton Brewery. So, yeah, I mean, they have the 3 staples. They have Hooky, Gold Hooky, and Old Hooky. So most of the pubs, you'll see those 3 on, but then they do quite a nice range of the premium bottled beer. So I'm starting on the Haymaker, which is a premium pale ale. That's a 5%. Just crack that one. That's really nice. Nice bit of fruit to it. It's almost like a pineapple colour. It's really a nice, really golden one. So certainly appropriate with the name. And then following that up with a flagship, and that's an English IPA, and that's a 5.1%. So a couple of strong ones tonight. Hook Norton Brewery. Once again, it was one of those weird places that were really in the middle of nowhere. And in fact, I got talking because they still have Shire horses there, or whatever they are, Shires or Suffolk Punches or Clydesdales. So I went to have a look in the stable. Quite surprising. You're pretty free to wander around, actually. It's a very old building from mid-1800s. They've got the shop there. They've got a nice cafe restaurant there. We actually sat outside. But there was sort of like signposts saying, stables this way, you can go and see the horses without having to pay for a museum tour or a brewery tour. So I sort of went wandering around by the stables to nobody about, saw a guy with a mask on, high-vis vest on. And I'm like, are we all right just to have a look at the horses, mate? And he said, I don't know. He says, I don't work here. He says, I'm trying to deliver something. He says, there's nobody about. So I said, well, that means I am all right to have a look in the stables then. Yeah. So anyway, we looked in the stables, horses weren't there. Came back out. He was still trying to find somebody. Then I realised, in fact, the horses were out in the field. So I went up to the field, and just as I was going up the field, there was a youngish lad coming over the gate, and he was obviously one of the, whatever you call, who look after horses, Bruce.
Groom?
Horse people. Groom, yeah. So I said, is it all right? We walk up to the top of the field. He said, oh, yeah, no problem. So I had a quick chat with him. Said about the brewery, I said, how come it's, in the middle of absolutely nowhere, because mid-Victorian times, anything they were producing would have had to be transported. And it was the obvious thing. He said, well, it was number one, it was the quality of the water. And he said they were farmers to start off with and then diversified into brewing. So that's why we've always been here. He said, but the railway also came in here as well. They actually put the railway line in at that time, when railways were expanding, and that's how they could move the beer about. So, yeah, so we didn't have a look around the brew house. It's a very iconic building. Everybody knows the Hook Norton Brewery. Very, very iconic. Say, in the middle of nowhere, nice little setup there. And I say, you don't have to, some breweries where you go, you can't get a drink, you can't do this, you can't do that unless you pay for a tour. There you can go along to the shop, you can go along to the cafe, the bistro place, and you can have a look around horses and stuff like that, see the brewing going on down into the yard, because you literally sat on the edge of the yard, so you can see stuff coming and going. So yeah, it was all right.
Okay, Bruce, is there any point of asking you about beverage in hand tonight?
Well, I'm going to the pub at 9:15, so I'm just having a kind of ting at the moment.
Well, I've just I've been on one of the homebrew. In fact, it's Mr. Scott's homebrew. This from the Pint. But we're both gonna have a rest and we get a bit better of home brewing now. So that was the Upland Social. And then in honour, mainly because this bottle was actually free, so when I got out of the fridge yesterday. In honour of England's finest win the other day, a bit of a lager night I felt tonight. So I've got a bottle of I can't even say this now. Tegner's Hell, which was The fridge has gone mental at the moment. Our fridge is either warm at one point or freezing cold. And I looked at the back of the fridge and it was actually dripping in ice yesterday. And I've had it at the front of the fridge now. It's gone quite lukewarm. But anyway, that'll be all right. We'll see how we go with that. So we are going to tackle the Lake District this couple of episodes. And I'm wandering lonely as a cloud with that famous Wordsworth quote, with a pint in hand. And certainly Nick and I are quite regular visitors to the Lake District. And Bruce, you've been a few times. And we'll talk about some of the ways that you can get there, actually, a good deal with certainly on the rail. It's a great place. Obviously, it's very scenic. It does get very busy, certainly has been very busy this month. I think maybe, but no, I think with lockdown, it probably will be busy. I always think there's still places that you can find that are quite quiet if you kind of know where you're going. I remember, Nick, we went to the Live Valley, didn't we, a couple of Christmas ago, actually, which is kind of that hidden valley over the hill from Windermere. And that was great, wasn't it? It's very picturesque. Not many people kind of head that way. You're betwixt Keswick and Windermere. And that was surprised some good pubs out there as well. Loads and loads of good breweries in the Lake District. So I've got a few there on the screen for those on YouTube. Coniston, Jennings, Ennerdale, Cumbrian Ales,
Windermere Brewing Company,
Heskett Newmarket. So there are some cracking breweries up there, and actually quite some nice, good golden beer. It seems to be I'm going to go through quite a few breweries, and I think I always kind of want to head towards the golden brew. So that's the plan. We're hoping that in the part B of this to catch up with a contact I've got via my work, whose partner is the head brewer at the Lake House Brew Company over in Ulverston. So I think John's said he's very happy to come and chat to us about Lake District beer. John, formerly it was a Stringers Brewery, which people might remember. I certainly had their beers. And in fact, I think they were Camera Beer of the Year for me a couple of years back as well. So what we'll do is me and Nick will do our kind of selection this week, and then Bruce will pick up his next time we podcast, and hopefully we might get John along as well to maybe give us the overview of that as well. So because it's such a big space and a big place to visit and stretching, I don't know how big it is in the national parks, we said we kind of make it manageable, so we pick fives. And again, I kind of did these out, so probably a bit unfair, really. I said I'd pick 5 lakeside breweries, lakeland breweries, and suggest would be a good place to have a pint in them. Nick was going to kind of pick the 5 most picturesque. He tends to pick those out, and we've already seen a few photos in past episodes. Actually, Nick on top of Lakeland Passes having a beer in one of some of those pubs.
Yeah,
as well.
that one isn't in the list tonight, and a couple of places aren't that picturesque, but it's just quality of the beer, really, and it's
and the atmosphere and the kind of Lake District vibe and whatever.
The part of the Lake District that we tend to go to, which is between Kendal and Keswick on this side of the lake. Yeah.
And then Brucey's trying to find kind of 5 foodie things. Lake's again got quite a good food reputation. There's quite a few actually, isn't there? Michelin star restaurants, isn't there? Especially now
Top mash lamb.
Yeah, and we've got lamb and sticky stoppy puddings and quite a few other bits and pieces as well. So
that's shrimps. What are they like? What are they like? Potted shrimps?
Auckland-based shrimps are quite nice actually. Yeah, they're quite. You don't get a lot for your money, and obviously they are normally potted. So you get the shrimps and then a kind of a big wad of butter over the top of them.
Yeah,
so quite nice.
Out there, yes.
Yeah, quite nice on a bit of toast.
We might try some live.
They're only small, and they're not very fishy. I think that's probably what people would think they've been quite fishy. They're not like the big prawns you get in Chinese takeaway. They're quite small and they're quite delicate, really. And they're a bit salty, but I love them and they're great. And they are obviously they're whatever they are. We're not near you anymore, are we? But they're one of those control things that you can only get them from that area as well, which is pretty good. So we've done. I think Nick's given us his beery highlights. Interesting that Bruce's beery highlights tend to mainly do about trying to con your council out of vouchers for buzz passes and for gin and tonic. So, Bruce, tell us about this little scam that you've uncovered in York.
Rather insanely, the First York Bus Company have been trying to get people back on the buses. So for £5 on Saturday, Sunday and bank holidays, an entire family or a group of 5 people can travel all day on the buses in York for £5. So it's £1 each, which is good enough. But now, believe it or not, if you actually show the ticket on your phone down at the judges' lodgings, York Gin are parked up there, and you get 2 free York Gins. So, of course, invariably people have caught onto this. There are people now buying endless electronic bus tickets and then getting 2 gins for £5. It's bonkers.
Yeah, because the 2 gins are normally retail at £3 each, don't they? So you're getting £6 for the gin for a £5.
Yeah, it's madness.
I thought it would be wild stocks last, Bruce. I thought they were going to run out because
Well,
I mentioned it to you last time we saw you 2 or 3 weeks ago, didn't I?
Yeah, it's bonkers, and it's just rolling on and on and on. Yeah.
So Bruce has been mainly ginning then when he's been out and about in York. I mentioned that I was going to Thornbridge, and I had a great, actually, lovely Father's Day. And my wife and son took me out. We did our normal. We got dropped off in Buxton, me and the son, and we biked down the which one is the Manifold Valley, which was really nice. It wasn't too busy. It was a little bit overcast that day, so we biked down there. But we ended up in the middle of a TV company doing some filming. We had a quick stop off at one of the stations. And then we ended up in Bakewell, and once again we visited the Thornbridge Brewery. This time, because of God, we changed the law since last time we were there, we actually were inside. We got a fantastic seat, actually a double settee, the three of us, so we can lounge out. And I've got a picture there, just be sampling probably one too many beers in there. Great, as always, it was spot on, fantastic beer, good range, and great pizza. So we had a wonderful Sunday afternoon in Thornbridge Brewery, and my son even bought me a lovely Jaipur bobble hat, which will be on my head in the winter podcast, I think. Interesting, when I was there, actually, Nick, it's funny how the beer world works, doesn't it? When I was there, Thornbridge had just been doing a collab with Mikella Beer. Remember, we had Mikella Beer for the first time in Tom's Social in Harrogate when me and you were there. And there wasn't much on, was there, like we were talking? And we ended up having that quite lively, wasn't it? Mikella. It was like lager, like a lager cross pale ale, wasn't it?
Major Tom's, wasn't it?
Major Tom's Social, yeah. And it's funny, you know, I'd never come across them before. You hadn't. They're a Danish beer company, although they do have breweries, I think, in America and Ireland. And we quite liked the beer. It was quite lively. And it really interestingly, Thornbridge were doing a collab with them. I didn't manage to do all three, but I managed the one was a kind of I really enjoyed the Three of Diamonds. That was like a passion fruit type pale, which was really nice. The interesting one, I put the picture there, and I think I just had a little try of this, is that they've done a seltzer, which is a very weird drink, a kind of a fruit seltzer. Well, I don't know if it's classed as a beer or not. You can see on the video, it's clear. It just looks like a tonic water.
Yeah.
And actually it was going down really well. So again, interesting to see kind of how those. I think they're a short run, but certainly the
I've read somewhere else. Alcoholic mineral water.
That's it.
Is the next trend supposedly.
Yeah. So that was really nice. I mentioned that I'd got a few beers from Round Corner. I picked them up because they've been a really good episode on the Beer O'Clock Opinion show, where they were talking to Combi, who's a brewer down there in Melton Mowbray, and I think I've definitely got that penciled for you two. Sounds a fantastic night. Mentioned that Round Corner Brewing have took over the cattle market in Melton Mowbray, and there's a lot of kind of street food stuff as well in a lovely tap room, and obviously loads of pork pies, and there are lots of pork pie shops in Melton Mowbray, all vie to be the best pie. So we see me and Bruce staggering around Melton Mowbray marketplace, sampling many pies. And that's really good. In fact, the steeplechase, I was really impressed, and I still haven't had. I've kept one back actually, which is the hoppy one, which I'm going to keep back. And then I'm also managed to get a can this week of Allagash White, which is supposed to be one of the greatest beers in the world, which is very rare because it's only brewed in America, and they only kind of release so much. So I'm saving that. I might save that in case England do really well in football, and I'm going to save that for a nice day.
Like the can, like that can, that art on there.
I would say I'd save it till next to you guys, but I don't think it'll last that long. It's currently in my garage. I think it needs to go back in the fridge and just thing a bit as well. So that's great as well. Beer news again. I think me and Bruce have shared a few of these this week. Just a couple from me. We said that we would try and do Manchester at some point in the future. And I think, and we've mentioned it before, I think the Circus, which is reputedly the smallest pub, certainly in Manchester, but probably in the north. And again, just it made the press because they can only get 18 people in there at any time because of obviously constraints, and it's just not making it viable really to go through. So there's a nice
little boozer though, isn't it?
Great little boozer, yeah, and it's worth going, isn't it? It's worth. You know what? I suppose we've been in it again, probably early afternoon or early evening, and it never has felt that busy, but I know it does get busy. And then we mentioned when we were at Harrogate, we were just they were doing the last throws, I think, of opening the Track and Sleeper, and that now opened. And again, just looking, there was a little, I think they tweeted it or camera, Naysbrook Harrogate camera, and on their opening week they had got some nice beers on Roosters, Thornbridge, Tiny Rebel. So again, I think somewhere we definitely probably pop into next time. Certainly waiting for a train. It's great, isn't it? It's actually on the platform. So that'd be really good as well. And then Bruce, you sent a couple. You've got one about the Gloucester landlady or landlord, I think it was, that in the Pelican that was refusing to sell lager full stop. Which, actually quite a few places don't sell lager, or if they do, it's craft lager. It's not like the macro lager. And then you'd also this interesting article that wasn't it about Heineken? Have just brought out and stouts. The Island's Edge, which is their kind of take on Guinness, and they are. I think I mentioned a couple of podcasts back. I was amazed to read that in Ireland, Guinness and Heineken make up something like 85% of all beer sold in Ireland comes from either Heineken or Guinness. And again, Heineken are thinking that there's a bit of a market here. So they've just released this new stout. It looks very much like Guinness. It tastes very much like Guinness, but it's not.
But in the article, it says they've spent 3 years perfecting the recipe. You presume they mean 3 years analysing Guinness and breaking it down and trying to reproduce it, don't you, really?
Allegedly. So I've not seen any of that. I don't know whether it's going to be sold in the UK as well. I think obviously it was from the Irish Independent that Bruce picked it out from. So again, maybe just want to keep our eyes open really.
Because I mean, we can probably guess the Guinness recipe, can't we? Anywhere, Bruce. All it is yeast, malt, hops, and water. And they're not putting anything sinister, anything.
It's that Liffey water that's a special
wonderfully exotic in there, are there? So
yeah.
And then just one that's quite contemporary for this evening. We've mentioned the Lakes Brew Company, which I think we talked some time ago about the kind of saga with Hawkshead Brewery, which again was one of our favourites. And I guess I'm going to mention it. Certainly a place me and Nick have been to quite a few times. The Hawkshead tap there, and for whatever reason there was a bit of a fallout or something, and quite a lot of the staff were made redundant at the start of lockdown. And given their due, they all got together to form Lakes Brew Company. We've been kind of following the story a little bit on Twitter, and after quite a while, I think there's a few kind of blips as always. They actually have managed to get their first beer out this week, and that is the DDH Pale at 4%, a Juicy Bold Balanced Pale. So again, not seen yet hitting the shops yet, but I'm guessing it'll start making its way into bottle shops and craft bars.
But interesting that they're quoting there, this will be available in keg and can, so obviously not cask.
I think that's what they're saying for the first run. They're going to focus on keg and cans.
It's easier, safer pair of hands, I would suggest, yeah.
So again, look out for that. And certainly we said, Nick, I think if we were back in that where we might pop in, because I think we said it's quite near the station, isn't it? This the brewery on that.
You said it was, yeah. I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it, but yeah. Not physically look for it, I mean just online.
Okay, so what we're going to do now then is we'll go through our choices of pubs. So I say it's going to be me and Nick for this episode. I mentioned I'm doing breweries and then a pint or where to have a pint of their finest beer. And Nick's going to talk about some of the iconic Lake District pubs, certainly ones that would be on checklist. So there was a bit of a scenario here. You may have picked up now that the Nick works at Eden Camp, and the late great Duke of Edinburgh was a very regular visit, I think, to Camp Nick. And I know you talk very highly of him, and when he came, he took a lot of time to speak to yourselves and also to the veterans that were often there, and just was a friend really of the camp. And so I came up with this mad scenario that in the Duke of Edinburgh's will, Nick and Stan, who was the old owner of Eden Camp, who met again probably Duke of Edinburgh and Stan as Nick, had been mentioned, and the Duke of Edinburgh had mentioned his love of Eden Camp and said he asked Prince William to do a favour. So Prince William rang us up and said, right, what can I do for you? And we said, well, can you get a helicopter? He said, yeah, I can get a helicopter. I'm a helicopter pilot. So we said, right, we'll have a helicopter for the day, and you can take us around 15 pubs in the Lake District for a day, and that'll be our ultimate tour. So that's the plan here. In fact, 15 was too many, so we need to get down to probably, I don't know, 6 or 7. So that's the plan. So that's a bit far-fetched, I know, but I was in a bit. I've been drinking something weird at the time.
Quite.
So there are
away then, yeah.
Yeah. As always, there are some. As always, there are lots of trails and pub stuff about the Lake District. It's quite a nice one of those lovely.
That's a new one. Yeah, not seen that one before. Yeah,
which I picked up this week, which is quite nice. The Brews of Cumbria, a bit like the old underground, and then I did also. There's quite a lot of trails actually where you can. I mean, there's a lot of serious walking in there, but there's quite a few that you can walk. Do a peak and do a pub. So you can walk up one of the Wainwrights and then come down and go to a pub, which I thought was interesting. Blurred on there, but there we go. And as always, we'll make a shout out to the local camera district. So for most of the lake, it's the Westmoreland Campaign for Real Ale branch. I guess there's also Lancaster branch and Carlisle branches would also fit in there as well. But again, I think, Nick, we definitely picked a few of these up. The Lakes and Ale is another great magazine. Again, they haven't done many editions over lockdown because there's lots of advertising, etc. But again, there's always a really fantastic, getting in the pub, pick one up. If there's only one, I would always please say leave it in the pub so somebody else can read it. But if you get there, on a good run, and I say, certainly on this one, there's lots of past editions that you can pick as well. And Nick, you wanted to mention the Northern Lakes Day Ranger, which is a train ticket, which I know you've used quite a lot, haven't you?
Yeah, you don't need an helicopter because they don't advertise
You
it
from
too
Staffordshire.
much. But no, because you see, all you do is come up the West Coast Main Line. So get yourself a deal on West Coast Main Line. I normally do it with Northern Rail are doing their £10 Rover ticket and all their network. But if you can get yourself to Kendal, then for £25.90, you can cover the whole of the lakes. And you're not only just using the trains, you're also using the buses, any coach bus you can use. So they run all the tourist buses within the lakes to connect you from places like Windermere up to Ambleside and further up to Keswick. And they also get a cruise on the boat as well. So you get a half lake single ticket. So what Jackie and I did last time was £10 ticket over to the lakes, and then you get your Ranger £25.90, and then that gets you into the heart of the lakes. That gets you from Lancaster up to Bowness, or Windermere, should I say. Jumped on the bus at Windermere up to Ambleside, jumped back on the bus to Ambleside to, is it called Water's Edge?
Yeah,
there's a couple of pubs there anyway. We've been in that one before. There's a hotel right on the edge of Windermere that does a lot of real ale. Jump on the steam cruiser there and it brings you back to Bowness. And then once again, jump on the bus Bowness back up to the train station at Windermere. So it means you can do a full day, or obviously if you're stopping over in the lakes, it means you can use a full 24 hours without having to get in your car or do too much walking or biking or anything like that. I mean, I know biking and walking is popular in the lakes, but in order to get round and get some pubs in and even a brewery or two, then it's a good way to get round and see the lakes.
And certainly one of my pubs I'm going to mention, the only way you get there actually without a car is via the steamer. So that would be great to use that to nip down and have a pint in this nice special place that I'm going to mention shortly. So yeah, a good deal that, and well worth looking out for. Are those available all year round, Nick, those Ranger tickets? Yeah.
As far as I know, yeah. And you pick them up from Northern Rail stations. But I say the nice thing is because obviously Northern Rail, and then you've got the stagecoach buses as well. I dare say it's subsidised by the government or by whoever, to try and keep traffic out of the lakes.
So the choices we've got so far is that, I say, Nick's got 5, which is going to be the Watermill Inn at Ings, the Badger Bar in Rydal Water, the Pheasant of Bassenthwaite, the Albert and Bowness, and the Hawks is Brewing in Staveley. And then Nick's also thrown in their booth for a nightcap, which again is quite a localish or regionalist, very good supermarket, independent supermarket, which always have fantastic range of beer as well. My 5 choices will include the Keswick Brewery and a pint in the Dog and Gun in Keswick, a pint of Hawkshead in the Lakeland Hotel New Bridge, which is the one where you've got to get the boat to it. The Eden River Company pint of Cracker, which is their kind of take on English bitter, and that's the Yanworth Gate, Nick. We've been in there together a few times. Coniston, a beer in their tap, which is the Black Ball in Coniston. And I kind of ummed and ahed about having a Jennings Cumberland, because I know Jennings is another beer brewery that's kind of had a bit of a, I want to check a history. It's had a very long history, but it's obviously now owned by one of the macros. But there's a cracking pub in Buttermere that I've been to, and I've been camping and walking, which is a great place to drink.
Well, I don't think they're even being their main stable beers at Cockermouth anymore. Yeah. I think they've all been moved down to the Marston's Brewery. I think they're doing some of the seasonals up there still.
Yeah.
Because they used to do the normal range, and then they used to do a seasonal one maybe every couple of months. Yeah. And that's something they were doing before a lot of other people were. So as I say, I think that the brewery up there is mainly used for experimental brews and special brews.
And they've done quite a big rebrand as well, haven't they? All the brand. I've got a couple of examples of their new branding, which again I'm not quite sure about yet. Well, Jennings is quite an iconic pub clip.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah. Recognised it, and was a really good. Again, was it? I guess it was. I think when the brewery was probably independent, it was a cracking pint, and certainly one that I would have, and it's one a bit like the Doom Bar experience. And I think as it's got bought out, and like you're saying, it when it's been brewed in Burton or brewed in Cockermouth anymore, we'll know really. Sometimes hard to say. So my first,
Challenge not have a brewery and work it in as well.
we may have done. I think it may have bought. I've got a bit of detail on it later on. I think he might have bought out a brewery in Workington and kept that going. So my first pint is the Keswick Brewing Company, which again I would say are fairly young, although I think they've been around for 15 years when I checked, which feels a long time. And I really like their Keswick Gold, and as I mentioned, I think gold beers in particular. It might be the water, perhaps that's what it is, because obviously using some of that lovely rainwater from the Atlantic that seeps through the gritstone and the stone in the Lake District. But I like the golds there. Keswick Brewing Company, I've got a tap room as well, which again I've not been, but it gets good reports as well. And my choice of drinking this would be in the Dog and Gun, which Dog and Gun is in Keswick. It's kind of just off the kind of traditional market square, isn't it, in Keswick, where on market days the market spreads out. It's kind of down a little alley at one of the sides there. I used to do a few jobs at the Keswick school, and this is where the PE team used to go drinking, maybe on the Thursday night, because they have a cracking quiz. And I was always roped in to help out on their quiz nights when I was up there as well. It's a tradition. It certainly was a very traditional old Lakeland boozer. I think it's had a bit of a revamp recently, and they have kind of knocked it through a little bit. It's quite famous as well. So I'm stealing some of Bruce's thunder here, but I've had this. They are famous because they've been doing goulash. I think in many moons ago, where the landlord had some link to Hungary and created this goulash recipe, and apparently it's been passed down from landlady to landlord to landlady all the way through. So again, I've got a picture there. Not even one of my pictures. They do a fairly humongous bowl of this goulash with some very nice kind of focaccia bread or whatever it is. So well worth popping in there. And certainly if you're in there,
but they're using, according to that, they're using what Thixton's Old Peculiar as the base of their goulash, are they?
No, it's just put with a pint of Old Peculiar.
All right, okay. Because I'm on my tablet, I can't see what the small print says. All I could see is something Old Peculiar. Right, okay.
But certainly worth having go in. And again, apart from it is for dogs, because it's got a Dog and Gun. So, but again, it's a nice little town boozer. So definitely would recommend if you're in Keswick, to have a pint of Keswick Gold in the Dog and Gun. You can't really miss it, because it's pretty much on the square. Lots of other good pubs actually in Keswick as well. Nick, anything else that I don't think you've got a Keswick pub, have you, on the list today?
Tend to go to Wetherspoons, to be honest with you, because it's handy for the car parking, and also it's quite a unique one. It used to be the old courthouse, and there are a couple of cells in there that you can sit in, so you can have a pint inside a cell. And in fact, last time we went up there, because it was one of the few places that had a decent outside drinking area out the back there, we just grabbed a couple of beers there. And it's one of those things is, I know Bruce you don't like Wetherspoons, but it's you always know that you if you can get a seat, you're going to be able to get something to eat. Whereas a lot of the pubs in the Lake District, you're either booking tables when in advance, or it's a case of, oh no, we've got 2 hour wait, or we're not doing food. Where at least, in Wetherspoons, you can get in there, get a seat, then you're going to get served quickly. You know what you're going to get. And once again, the beer ranges in there have always been pretty good. They've always had a couple of local ones on. So yeah, just tend to go in the spoons there.
Okay,
it's quite a substantial bowl of goulash, isn't it? Actually,
oh yeah, it is. It's one of those where do I really want this? And actually, when you've had it, it just tastes bloody good. And everybody says, "Oh, you must try it." Although I think everybody I was having pie and chips anyway. But there we go. Nicholas, your first choice of pubs. I don't know where I put pub 2 there. I think you should pub 1. Sorry, is the Watermill, and there's a lovely picture there. And that was it. Was that a New Year's Eve about 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
You and me are sampling some very nice Lakeland beers in one of those triples, one of those third tasters.
Well, it'll have been one of the New Year's Eve, because, like you say, we got into a rut of going up to the lakes for New Year quite a few times, didn't we? And once again, we always find this one, because it's not in a town, because it's really on the main road that connects Kendal up to Windermere and Bowness. It's right on the side of the road. In fact, as a little sideline, if you want to amuse yourself, it's good to sit outside, and as it's getting dark, there's a couple of speed cameras there, and you just count how many times the speed cameras flashes and how many poor souls don't realise that there's speed cameras there and get done for it. So it's a place that we always go. We've eaten there quite a few times. You're talking about the Morecambe Bay shrimp. I seem to recall that they had those on the last time we were in there. continue your dog theme, I always used to think their pump clips were a bit gimmicky and a bit, not taking beer seriously. But their beer range is named predominantly on a dog theme. So everything from you've got a bit rough through to collie wobble, and obviously the pump clip for that is a couple of collie dogs that are wobbling all over, up to their strongest, which anybody watching the YouTube, you can see the pump clip there, which is Shih Tzu faced, which is their 7% that they describe as a complex fruity beer. But they always have at least 7 or 8 of their own beers on. But nice for a brew pub that they always have 2 or 3 guests on as well. They're more than happy to have local guests on, as well as the more common garden, Timothy Taylor's landlord and things like that. So you can have a very, very good session in there. Quite traditional pub, stripped back. As you can see in the background there, you've got the whitewashed walls, wooden floors, open fires as well. Once again, a place that is very popular with dogs because by the nature of the fact that they've named a lot of the beers after dogs, they must be dog lovers themselves. You can see the brewery operating as well, though I don't know whether they still operate out of that brewery or whether they've expanded. And as I say, it's just on the edge of what you would call the lakes proper in terms of, Windermere, Bowness, and then Ambleside, Keswick, and all that sort of places. So that's the first place. As I'm coming into the lakes, if I'm not going to stop at Staveley, I'll stop there instead.
And it's on kind of the road's kind of parallel. The new A road is kind of on the left side of the pub, and I think the pub was on the old road, isn't it? Because it's like 2 roads. You've got to come off the main road and go a little lane. Well, it's not lane, but it's quite a small road, which must be the old road.
It would have been a coaching in, like you say. And
then
there's a camper van garage next to it as well, because I say it is a fast road, and for some people it's too fast because they often get the speeding tickets. And again,
there's quite a few. There's a couple of rooms. There's quite a few different rooms, and we tend to go on the one. This is kind of on the right hand side of the pub, isn't it? The kind of long, thin room, which is a bit more quiet because the front room gets full of lots of dogs and kids and more kind of a bar.
But once again, you can jump on and off the bus as well there. The bus stops there, so you can jump off, on your way out the lakes or going into the lakes. Nice jump off the bus to have a couple of beers there.
Okay, fantastic. So my beer number 2, Nick has mentioned Hawkshead. So despite what we might think about what they did to some of their staff, they still produce good beers. I've got to be honest. I have had one of their beers since that. And certainly on draft, it's a cracking pint. So my second beer would be a pint of Hawkshead Gold. Hawkshead are based in Staveley, and they've got a fairly modern taproom brewery, which you mentioned before. The kind of tap room is at the front and over the top, the brewery out towards the back there. Again, I know Nick's probably going to come back to it in a short while as well. It's got a lovely sitting area at the top there, and we mentioned before the British tapas, which they do, the kind of pub tapas, which we certainly enjoyed there as well. And linking to what Nick talked about, my pub of choice or my bar of choice, it's not really a pub, is the very plush Lakeside Hotel, which is, it's actually next to the aquarium and the steam train, if anybody knows kind of the bottom left-hand side of Windermere. It's kind of right at the bottom as you come on the road that kind of goes to South Lakes. I'm lucky enough that we have a conference twice a year here, so I get to go and not spend my money actually because it's very expensive, but it's a fantastic place. And it does have a really cracking bar, Ruskin Bar, which is open to the public. You don't have to go to the hotel to get there. And they always have 2 Hawkshead beers on, and I've got to say, they're always on cracking form. They're not the cheapest, but they're not £6 a pint. They're a bit less than that. Always in great form. And
well, you don't know. You're not being back up there. They might be when you go back up there. Might be £7 a pint.
But it's a great place. In fact, there's actually a Roman road in the floor of this pub. I think you've been in there. I think you've been in there or not, Nick.
No.
You've got a kind of glass floor, so beneath it is the old Roman road that went up the side of Windermere, which it's a bit confusing when you've had a few beers. And if you can get a beer, you can go outside and you can sit. And again, for those on the YouTube, there's a fantastic kind of sitting garden, beer garden, right on the edge of Windermere, which is pretty fantastic. And I've got to say, a couple of those rooms you can see on the picture that I've been looking at to be actually stayed in some of those rooms where you're overlooking the lake, and it's just fantastic. It's a beautiful space. It's on the very quiet side of Windermere. It's on that, I'm looking kind of upwards on the left-hand side, which is the quiet side away from all tourist traps of Bowness and Ambleside, etc. So a cracking beer and quite a nice posh place. I think when I looked at the, I think on Watts Pub actually, on Watts Pub, the definition of Watts Pub is a classy hotel on the edge of Lake Windermere, wood panelling in the bar and subdued lighting. Adjacent to the ferry steamer, which is the only way you can get there public transport, you probably spot the odd Premier League footballer or manager among the clientele. I've got to say the food there is pretty fantastic as well. So there we go. That was my beer 2 and my pub 2. Nick, you're taking us now to the Badger Bar.
Now,
nice
I'd always going back to the Camera local magazines. I'd always read about the Badger Bar, so I knew it was a beer bar that sold real ale. But once again, it's actually on the road that connects Ambleside up to Keswick. So once again, it's quite a fast road. It's in the middle of, well, it's not in the middle of nowhere because it's actually opposite Rydal Water. So I always read about it, always thought I fancied stopping there, but couldn't really persuade my other half for any other reason that we were just going to go to the pub. That said, we have found a nice walk around Rydal Water that takes about 40 minutes because the lake is one of the smaller lakes in the Lake District. Fairly flat as well, bit of woodland by the side of the lake, etc., etc. And quite fortuitously, this pub lies sort of where 2/3 away around your walk. So once again, when we went up there earlier this year, because it was all outside drinking, by driving past in the car, I could see they had a sizable beer garden, not just at the back of the pub, which is the image on the YouTube video, but also at the front of the pub as well. So I persuaded my other half to go in there. And lo and behold, we actually went back there a couple of times. Nice big beer garden, 3 or 4 of their own real ales on. As you might be able to see from the display there, they have their own glasses. So I managed to acquire one of those. Don't worry, I did pay for it. So that added to my memorabilia from the Badger Bar. And then lo and behold, decided I was going to go to the loo. And Bruce, I know you're always interested in toilets. So once again, for those people on the pod, you won't be able to see this, but you go in the gents' toilet and they've actually got half a mountainside in there.
That's amazing.
They've actually built the toilet around some natural rock and sort of like fitted the bathroom in there. And yeah, very nice squished toilets, but you've got all this natural rock in there, which is, quite something to behold. So I had to be careful, obviously whipping my camera out in the gents' toilet, but managed to do it when there was nobody else in there because at that
did
time
you manage to piss on the Peroni sign? Or
it was a 1 in 1 out type of thing that, you know. So once I was in there, I knew that I could spend a bit of time in there. So yeah, if nothing else, if you're going to go to the Badger Bar, it's actually based in the Glen Rothy Hotel. Then make sure you check out the gents' toilets when they're in there. I can't remember what I was drinking, but I say they always have at least 2 or 3 local beers on. And as I say, if you're going to the lakes and you want to say you've done a walk, it's a nice, flat, easy 40-minute walk. You can say, yes, we went walking and then we had a quick pint.
I'm still trying to work out that those antique Peroni and Gordon's gin signs, which are obviously not very antique. There's kind of those remakes that they've got on there. And for some reason, Nicholas, I thought back to our time at primary school and one of our old muckers, David Pickering, who had the record of being able to pee over 10-foot walls, and I can just imagine Pico seeing those signs and saying, I'm not going to go near around, I'm going to hit them signs.
Yeah, possibly. I can't remember because there's actually a mirror there. I can't remember whether they're stuck on the mirror or they're reflecting on the other side of the toilet. I can't say I really noticed those, but like you say,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so the toilets, I'm sure for Bruce, the toilets would be well worth a visit, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Okay, my beer 3 is another brewery, which is the Eden River Brewery Company. And I'll come back to those in a minute. And I'll be drinking this in, and we spent a few good nights in here, the Yanworth Gate Inn, which is a little bit off the beaten track. It's basically in between Penrith and Pooley Bridge. It did hit the headlines a couple of years ago, unfortunately, because it was one of those when it was really affected by the floods. Remember, there was some really bad flooding up in that, I think it was about 2015, 2016, wasn't it? And unfortunately for this pub, the bridges on either side of it, the Pooley Bridge and the bridge at Emont Bridge, both collapsed with that massive flood. So actually, to some extent, it wasn't quite marooned, but it was cut off. And certainly, if you're heading towards it's Ullswater, isn't it? That end and from Penrith.
Yeah, Ullswater. Yeah.
You don't go through the village because the road now skirts around the edge, but you can see the Yanworth Gate. and it's a typical, very, I think 17th century, very stocky, typical Lakeland low-lying pub. But really nice inside. It's got a really good reputation for food. Actually, we ate there.
Well, we had a New Year's Eve meal in there as well, didn't we?
Yeah, it was really
the year
really
that we
nice,
were stopping
actually.
near Pulley Bridge. We had New Year's here in there.
Yeah, and always have at least 3 or 4 real ales on, particularly from the Eden River Brewery Company, who are based just outside Penrith. Often also have Heskett Market, Newmarket Brewery, and Barngates as well. So again, a really good pub. Bruce's like it. Lots of fires, lots of wood burning stoves, lots of exposed beams, lots of brass hangings. And if you're there's a weird castle. Lowther Castle is kind of one of those old borders type, one single column towers just down the road from it, which is, I guess, from the old days of weaving and bordering and whatever else you used to do up there with the people from nicking the sheep. So great little place. And I say Cracker is a traditional English bitter. They actually, well, they call it a Cracker. I think Eden River is one of those typical new modern companies, really. Again, interesting history. Penrith Eden River Brewery, as they were formerly called the Eden Brewery, they were actually sold to the. It's an interesting link here because it's on the River Eden's up there, but they were actually sold to Eden Mill, who were a Scottish distiller and brewer in 2019. And by doing that, they've got their beers a little bit further out, obviously a further reach from using them as well. And they at the Eden River, they have now a state-of-the-art bottling plant. And the Cracker, if I read the notes, it's a slightly hazy, hint of spice and malt in the aroma, a dry, bitter, tartish apples, a clean, bitter finish. So I think a nice beer, certainly for maybe an autumn evening, if you've been out, etc., a couple of walks around the lakes, and you want to sit by a lovely fire, and that's the kind of beer that I quite like, really. A bit of that, again, slightly spicy, bitter, which sounds very nice indeed. So my third pub, or my third beer, is the Eden Cracker, and the pub would be the Yanwick Gate, which is just outside Penrith, just south of Penrith. Okay, Nick's pub number 3 is the Pheasant, and there's a lovely picture. Nick was looking a little bit like, John Cleese up in there. Very strange face on in there. This is one of your old Victorian pubs, Nick.
Yeah, once again, it's a pub that I'd read about. It's in the Camera Heritage Guide. Sadly, it didn't have much atmosphere going on because we hit it in the middle of the day, because it really is down a dead end road, end of Bathurst, and they put the dual carriageway in. And once again, a bit like the Watermill Inn, it sits on the old road, but unlike the Watermill Inn, where they put the new road in right next to it, the new road really is well off it. So it really is a dead end. And in fact, you could almost, indeed, we went in there. So I say it was mid-afternoonish. So we were the only people in the front bar, and this is what the bar is known for. Typical Edwardian bar. They reckon it hasn't been changed for the last 70 to 80 years. Certainly the walls, the colour of the walls would have originally been nicotine. And they reckon that they've been lacquered so much, and all the woodwork in there has been lacquered so much you get that deep shine to it. This is a public bar. There's also a residence bar as well. But the only other thing I found a bit surreal was when I actually went to have a little explore around, there was sort of 2 or 3 sort of like little lounges, and each one seemed to have a single person sat in reading a book. So you seem to have a lot of single people in this hotel sat in the middle of the day. The weather outside was lovely, but yet they all seemed to be sitting in these rooms reading a book. And it was almost like one of those murder mysteries. You know, you've turned off the road, you've come to this dead-end pub, you go in the pub, it's very, very quiet, and yet you've just got like strange-looking characters in each of these rooms reading books. And it was a bit surreal, really. But certainly for the architecture in there, for, you know, our like my heritage pubs, it's certainly worth looking out. They did say when I was reading up, actually, that not that I noticed this, they reckon that the hand pumps are actually on the back of the bar. Now I'm looking there at the photograph, and they appear to be the front of the bar, but whether that means from the private the lounge bar, which is obviously the other side where I'm in the public bar here. But yeah, certainly worth looking out for the old furniture and just the decoration in there, absolutely. And Bass and Thwaite is famous for the ospreys as well. They have a breeding pair of ospreys that often return there. So you like your ornithology and your bird watching, you're in that sort of part of town. You're more up towards Keswick area,
Yeah.
Bassenthwaite. And I say it does take a bit of finding of the sat nav. It just shows that it's almost not on the road. It makes it look like it's in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, worth having a look out.
Yeah,
It's part of I think the In Collection.
Right.
So it's a company that seem to be on the ascendancy. They seem to be buying up some very traditional and very well-known pubs in the north of England and sort of investing in them. So hopefully they won't decide to refurbish and change what the bar's like. So yeah, that's number 4.
By the sound, it's full of romantics trying to be Ruskin and Wordsworth and Yeats and
yeah, not
wandered
sure
around
because
and Redbacks and
yeah,
okay.
all on their own. You know, single people who check into a hotel that there's not much else to do. But yeah.
Okay, so that's pub number 3 for Nick. My pub number 4 is across the Coniston and by the lake and at the foot of the Coniston Old Man, which I think you just about to see in the corner of that picture that I've got there. So this is, again, a great match. It's a pub and it's a brewery all together, which is fantastic. So this is the Black Bull in Coniston, which, again, you can't really miss because it's kind of on the main road. Been there for, well, ever. I think it's 16th century, yeah. And the brewery kind of built up. The pub was there initially in the family that the Bradley family that owned the pub. One of the sons there went away and did brewing, studied brewing, and came back and set the pub up. And since then, it's got, it's absolutely boomed. And certainly, I think most people have heard of Bluebird, which is one of their iconic beers, and the Old Man, which is obviously linked to the mountain, the hill behind them, the Old Man of Coniston. And I was reading there that they are sending bottles of Bluebird and Old Man to the USA, Sweden, and Hong Kong because of its kind of its history, its heritage. It was pretty good as well. So this acts as their tap bar. So there are always at least 6 of their beers on. My choice would be the Infinity IPA. Again, probably not a session beer because it's a 6%er. I quite like, obviously, if you like, this is, I guess, what we call more of a British type IPA. So a step up, proper kind of old pale ale, really. Hop without bound, highly aromatic with a lingering bitter finish, which is kind of beers that I like. So I think sipping a Infinity IPA, looking up at the Coniston Old Man, thinking, should I walk up there tomorrow or not? And again, as you can see from the picture, there's quite a nice sitting out area there as well. And again, I think they do good, whatever the word is, umptious Lakeland food with good portions if you've been a day on the hills as well. So Coniston Brewing Company, certainly, I think, Nick, you've had a few Bluebirds in your time, haven't you? Often when I come around yours, there's often one of.
Yeah, in fact, I had a Coniston Bluebird beer mat with me in the Cotswolds. For when I've been going in the pubs and they don't provide you the beer mat, so I had a Fuller's and a Coniston Bluebird. So I got some funny looks when people kept coming back to refill my glass for me. But there we are.
I just read actually. I mean, they do it's a fairly standard. Oh, I'm picturing the beer somewhere. Maybe I haven't. Coniston Bluebird bitter we mentioned. They do a Bluebird Premium XP. I don't think about that, which you want to look out for. They do a barley wine, which again is a very old-fashioned, isn't it? British standard. The Old Man ale we've mentioned is a slightly more, I guess, kind of more of a kind of ruby ale, I would probably say, a bit like the Strong Arm kind of beer. A light ale, which again you don't see very often, and an oatmeal stout, which again I don't think I've had yet, but might be worth looking that out really when we go through. So the Coniston, a pint of Coniston Infinity IPA in the Black Bull in said name Village Coniston. Nicholas's beer number 4, pub number 4, is the Albert Bowness, which have, again, we'll keep with Nicky Bruce's thunder here. They seem to do a very nice platter there, Nicholas, the Albert.
Oh,
yeah, I suppose this is what you would call the Blackpool of the lakes, really. A lot of people get mixed up and say Windermere is on the lake, but it's not. Windermere is obviously where the railway station is. And to get to the lake, which is actually Bowness and Windermere, you've got about a 35-minute walk or you jump on the bus. So that's obviously where all the tourists head to. If you want something to eat or drink in Bowness, then we always tend to migrate to the Albert. It's a Robinson's pub and it caters for everybody, but it's got some different areas, nice areas. Once again, they've got nice outdoor areas. So when we were up there early this year and it was outdoor service only, managed to sit outside on there. They've got a 2-tier patio area. And then the food, once again, for a chain pub, Robinsons have always done decent food. So those looking on YouTube can see the platter there. It's supposed to be a sharing platter, but I normally have that as a main meal. So we've got beef, we've got ham, we've got prawns, we've got the crackers, the cheese, the local cheese on there, big hunks of bread, pickled onions, get it with a side order of chips. I'm always happy. It's one of those things that you can eat for a couple of hours just picking at it, grazing at it. And once again, some people don't like the Dizzy Blonde, but last time we were up in the lakes, I think it was probably the best pint I'd had all week. Robinson's Dizzy Blonde. They also do the Cumbrian in there. We talked about the Trooper before. And if you want to finish your night off in style, then you go on the Old Tom, which is the Old Tom. You just mentioned the barley wine there, Mike. The Old Tom is getting to be like the barley wine. That is a really strong one. Normally only in bottles, although I don't think they've got it on hand pull in the Albert. Certainly they have it in a couple of the Robinson's pubs in the lakes that I've seen it on hand pull before. But as I say, if you want your nightcap, then you get on the Old Tom there. So yeah, once again, the other thing is you can't reserve a table in there.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that.
So
Yeah.
if you use your common sense and you decide to go along not typical lunchtime or tea time, which if you want to eat, don't expect to eat between 12 and half 1, 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Don't expect to turn up there at 6:30, 7 o'clock and get an evening meal. But if you plan it right, you'll get yourself in the half 4. When that turnover happens, the day trippers are going away, the people stopping the area haven't got out and about yet. What you would call normal tea time, if you were back home, sort of half 4, 5 o'clock-ish, you'll get yourself a table in there because they're not reserving tables. And as I say, that's where we always normally head for if we want something to eat.
And they've actually got kind of a terrace area that's been there. As you see on the picture there, they have got obviously marquee and things, but they've got
they've got the outside on
the
ground floor, and then in fact they've got they've put some cast iron steel. It's almost like a mezzanine layer.
Yeah.
So you actually go up a steel staircase, and then there's an upper tier. They do tend to put these not so many stag parties, but hen parties up there because of the cackling away and carrying on. Then they're out the way a bit more. But yeah, I mean, when I was there, I worked out the outdoor occupancy, and they had seating for about 100 people, which ain't bad, and then obviously you've got inside the pub as well. So yeah, I can't think that I've ever been in there and not been able to get a seat, put it that way. But I say you just got to use a bit of common sense. So yeah, that's the place where I would go in Bowness.
Yeah, you give us quite a good little tour around the lakes there. So Bowness, and then my final pub number 5 is I'm taking it a little bit deeper into the kind of heart of the Lake District and Buttermere, which is a fantastic little village. It's actually a little bit away from the Buttermere Lake. And you have to go past the Hollister Pass and past the Slate Mine, etc. There's a couple of ways you get in there from Keswick and working it through there. I've been on doing a few walks here, and there's a little campsite just down the road from the village that we use, which is again one of the farmers' campsites. One of those things you just turn up, pitch your tent. There's a little kind of shack that's got a toilet and a shower in it, and in the morning you go across the farm and pay the farmer. And actually, amazingly, it's actually 2 pubs within Buttermere. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's probably about 7 houses, but it's got 2 pubs. So there is the Fishes, which is literally across the road from the bridge. But for whatever reason, we've always been into the bridge. And it is a hotel, but it's got a kind of walkers bar, ramblers bar down the bottom there. And they actually have a range of good beers on them. But I said the one I thought we'd better pick was Jennings Cumberland. It's another golden beer that I mentioned. And I said that's their. Again, I'm not quite sure about the new branding that they've got there, but hey ho. So we mentioned Jennings quickly, just a quick resume. Jennings date back to 1828, so again, a very long history. Actually started in a village called Lawton, which is just 2 miles outside of Cockermouth, and then moved in 1874 into Cockermouth because they needed bigger premises, basically. Again, are very proud of the water that they use, so they sit between the rivers Cockermouth and Derwent, and they draw the water from area there. The brewery has its own well, which again I guess gives that terroir we've talked about before in terms of their beer. They themselves, I think Bruce mentioned this, they bought out another 4 Cumberland breweries in the early 1920s, including the Falders Brewery in Keswick, and took over a number of their houses. I don't know whether they have any pub code. They won't do now because they got bought out by Marston's in 2005.
Oh, Marston's.
And obviously Marston's split, don't they? They have the Marston's pub code and the Marston's brewery element.
I didn't realise that Marston's were brewing Thwaites beers till the other day.
Yeah. That's a little buyout as well. Again, they do quite a range of beers. So they do Cumberland, which is their number 1 golden beer. And I'd say certainly one I would probably choose, I think, of there. They don't do Sneck Liquor. We used to like, didn't we, Nick?
That was a lighter one, yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a strong one. Snack lifter. Snack lifter was about 5.5–6%, I think. And there's been a bit of a hoo-ha about that because I thought I had a picture of it somewhere. Maybe I haven't. Anyway, the buy over from Marston's, they just stopped doing it. And there's quite a lot of people saying, you know, it's.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was thinking of Sleck Dust, which is a great Newsom, which is that's a light one. The Sneck Lifter, yeah, because the Sneck is the little metal door lever on traditional farmhouses.
Yeah,
and it was a case of that was your last one before you lifted the Sneck to go home. That was your nightcap.
Oh, I've got it. Sorry, I was going to put a picture on it. Yeah, strong ale, 5.1%, strong, satisfying ale, wonderfully full of warm and full and complex flavors. And that was one that we used to drink that quite a bit. We've got that, actually, you used to get that quite around our way in Yorkshire quite a bit as well. So it's a lovely little pub. For some reason, last time I was in there, we spent all night playing Yahtzee, which I can't really understand why, really, because it's not really a game I would choose. But there were three of us. We were walking the next day. We had a very fine Lake District pie and chip peas supper, and probably one too many pints, I think, at the time. But the beer was on really good form, and spent 4 hours playing Yahtzee.
The thing with Jennings as well, going on about booze, you remember, Bruce? I mean, they used to do £1 a bottle, didn't they? Couldn't you used to get a case of 12 Jennings beers for 12 quid?
You could, absolutely, yeah, and it was a great deal. There's very little left now for £1, sadly, in booths.
Yeah, for the last booths I was in, I thought they'd reduce the actual real ale choice. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a good range. A lot of independent breweries, but yeah, I think I was in the one in Ripon. I was quite surprised that once upon a time it used to be the full length of an aisle. I suppose now because of the cans and you know, a surging cider and all these other alcoholic type drinks. The actual real ale section had been decreased somewhat, but I would still go, Jennings. But once again, it's sad with the traditions and the heritage that it had. I know they struggled, obviously, when they were flooded out. The brewery, when Cockermouth was absolutely decimated a few years ago, I know it took them a lot to get back on their legs. Funny again that the one and only time I actually went to the brewery, because I wasn't bothered about going around the brew house, because obviously I know how they make beer. We just went in the tap room, and the lady was a bit reluctant to serve us. I say it was only me and my other half. And she sort of said, well, have you got a tour booked? And I said, well, no, I've been around before. You know, I know how they make beer. Just wanted to come and have a pint in your tap. And she said, oh, well, we aren't really geared up for that. And then she looked at me and looked at our lass and said, well, I don't think you're going to cause any problems. So, okay, you can have one drink. Whether they were getting big groups of lads going in there or big groups of beady weedy camera people who were of like mind to me, no, I'm not going to pay 8 or 9 quid to be told how to make beer. I just want to sample the beers or what I don't know.
It might have been the license, Nick. It might have been the license.
I don't know, because once again, it's not. It wasn't a big area. There again, you know, the way that all these breweries have seen this is part of the marketing now. Make a nice big tap room and get folks in there. So whether it's changed or what, I don't know. But that was my last experience.
Just reminds me, because that reminds me of my experience when I went to Bushmills. A few times I went to Bushmills, and again, you go to Bushmills, and again, you don't have to go on the tour, but you go and try and buy a whiskey. You can't buy a whiskey because, again, the licensing law says you can only have a whiskey on the tour. Apart from if you go up to the cafe and ask for a hot chocolate, you can then buy a whiskey with your hot chocolate. So that's I mean, the good Irish always have a scam. But it reminds me, actually, that I know that I think it was last week before we talked about the licensing laws, didn't we, in Northern Ireland especially. I know they were going through a process. And I think there was a bit of movement, and I think it wasn't quite what, because I remember I said to you that a brewery, for example, cannot sell beer. A brewery cannot sell beer from its brewery.
Direct,
the licensing laws, they have to go to somebody else to sell the beers. A brewery can't have a tap room in Northern Ireland. And I know that some legislation was changed. I don't think it was quite exactly what, perhaps try and look it up. I know it wasn't quite what the breweries were after, but it was a step, at least in the right direction, to kind of solve that.
I would think that's to do with duty, because obviously duty is a tax, and if you're making your own beer and you're selling your own beer, then how many times you turn around and say, oh, well, that batch went wrong, or we lost a couple of barrels on the brewery floor, and I'm afraid we can't account for it.
I think it's more to do with the Presbyterian power of the Mr. Paisley and friends, who were, you know, very anti-alcohol completely. I'm actually reading that. So I'm reading one of Pete Brown's books at the moment about the kind of history. I thought it's called the history of beer, and you know, it's really interesting when you look back at You know, a lot of our licensing laws now, because you'll know, link back to the First World War, don't we? When licensing laws were changed quite drastically to make sure that we kept making munitions and we kept producing lots of armaments, because that was what they worked out, that if you want to win a war in 1920, 1914, it was basically how much stuff you could make and therefore fire at the other person. And after the war, they didn't repeal those. And reading the book in the 1920s, it said beer almost slipped out completely out of, you know, it got really expensive. It was really heavily taxed. The licensing laws changed completely. So it's quite interesting story. I've just read the WhatsApp, the Watts pub for the bridge there. And again, interesting, it says that it's 3 different bars, popular outside seating, great views, 4 changing ales all the time from Cumbrian breweries, and a rare keg pilsner, the Whistling Pig, brewed at the Tractor Shed in Workington, which again, I don't know that was on when I was there, but that's interesting. Got a middle of nowhere little bar that's got quite a rare keg pilsner brewed in Workington, which is a must as well. Right, we're on to, oh, we've gone quick on this one. This is Nick's pub 5, and oh, there we go. So you've got a nice picture there, Nick, of one of those blackboards that you love, and this is in the Hawkshead Breweries in Staveley.
Yeah, we've used this in a previous podcast, but once again, talk about the watermilling. I see as Mike gateway to the lakes. You know, the people say that Kendal is actually the gateway to the lakes, which I suppose it is on the south of the area there. But coming on the main road, if I'm not stopping at the watermill, then I like to call in Staveley. Even more so if I'm not driving or my other half is driving or on the train, then the train you catch from Kendal to Windermere, you can actually jump off at Staveley. You've got about an 8-minute walk down to the Hawkshead Brewery. So you've got 45 minutes to have a couple of pints, back up to the station, back on the train, finish your journey off in Windermere. So the trains run every hour along that line. So, yeah, it's not the most aesthetic of places, although you could say as a beer hall, it's fine. Nice traditional wooden bar there, as you can see, not made out of knackered old pallets that seems to be the trend nowadays. Full range of the Hawkshead Brewery beers on there. As you say, Mike, before, we have found a nice lounge area upstairs, which a lot of people don't realise that you can go and sit up there. So they've got some nice big leather sofas. And once again, the view isn't great because you just overlook the rest of the industrial estate out front there. Once again, the last time I was in the lakes, because it was outside service only, they managed to put a lot more picnic tables at the front and the side of the beer hall. And in fact, the time previous to that, happened to stop off on the train, and lo and behold, the beer festival was just starting. That was on a Thursday. So we had a good couple of hours there, missed one of the trains and went for the second train. Once again, they had pizza ovens there. They had the food there going, good atmosphere. And as I say, great range of beers. I can't think that there's any beer that I don't particularly like. Don't have a great favourite because they're all pretty much the same, but it's nice that you can choose anything between a light beer of about 3.5% right the way up to some of the darker ones, depending what mood you're in and what your palate is like at that time. So always worth a look in. They have a little bit of a shop there. It's not, they could probably do a bit better with the shop. It's sort of behind a glass window and there's not a lot on display. And I say it's one of these sad situations that they can't sell their beer as cheap as what they have to sell to the supermarkets for. So really, if you want bottles of beer, just go to the booths in Windermere and you'll probably get the same sort of selection for actually cheaper than they're selling it in the brewery, which is I always find sad, but we know what it's about. It's basically the beer that they sell at the supermarket. It's almost a lost leader for them. It's in order just to try and get their name out there in the hope that people will buy a bottle, try it, and then think, let's go to the brewery, let's go and find it on tap somewhere.
So that's our choices then. So I've got my 5, Nick's got his 5. I'll say what we'll do next time we meet, we'll talk to Bruce and he'll select his 5 pubs of choice with a bit of a foodie background as well. And I mentioned that we hopefully might catch up with John from the Lakeland Brew House, which are part now of the Lakeland Inns Pub Company, and are based out of one of their breweries, or their pubs, sorry, out in Ulverston. And as I mentioned that formerly John was set up the Stringers Brew, which you may remember some of their beers as well. And again, quite an interesting range that they offer. And I was questioning they do a Damson beer as well. I think it's a bit of a seasonal beer, but that ties in with that thing I said with Nick. We went to the Live Valley, which is the Damson capital of the lakes and the UK. So interesting range of beers there as well. Which
I
is
think
really good.
you've got experience of. We talked about connections and public transport, Bruce. You've been out on that the coastal line before, haven't you?
Oh yeah, that's the one that goes from Lancaster to Carlisle. That's a cracking journey. I mean,
But that's
Yeah.
via places like Ravenglass and
and Barrow.
Yeah.
Furnace
So we
and
haven't covered the area, have we? So
Ringwood
that's
Plant, yeah.
good. Yeah, I think a few of those pubs because we haven't quite done that bit of the lakes.
well, I've
Interesting.
been to Barrow once, and once again it was Wetherspoons, and that was bad enough. I'm afraid. You know, Barrow's famous for making the nuclear submarines now, but it's a strange old place and typical one of these. Not quite a massive port city, but obviously, you know, a lot of the industry has moved on and closed down, and people tend to get washed up there. Nice enough Wetherspoons, but really trying to find another pub that I fancied going in and felt safe going in, it was a bit difficult, really. But once again, you know, we've been out there a couple of times. Certainly, Ulverston I've been before, and I know you've been on that line there, Bruce. So that's maybe something to talk about as well. If people like the transport as well as the beer.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's like sort of St. Bees, and you can look across, see the.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That is, yeah.
Interesting.
And then Nick, we can probably remember a good session in the Albion in Silleth, which is a pub that me and you went to one afternoon.
Oh, aye, yeah.
Silleth's another place where you look over Dumfries and Galloway across the whatever.
Was it probably the only pub we couldn't find, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's that was a cracking little boozer we went to in there, and I think there was another one in Silleth we went to as well. It was a
well, we found that one. It was about 10-minute, quarter of an hour walk from the front, and then, but it's quite nice because I think there was a local football match going off, and then once they finished, all the lads started coming to the pub. So it was definitely it was a corner local.
Yeah.
But it was fair enough. We were accepting there, no problem. Like so.
Good stuff. So we will we'll catch up. I don't know if it'll be next week or towards the next week, and we'll do part B of this. I'm hoping that I'll get this podcast out before the weekend. Gents, we've got any plans for the weekend? I think the forecast looks okay. So probably obviously you've got the football on Saturday night. England playing Czechoslovakia in Rome.
Ukraine.
So that's a Czechoslovakia.
I don't know which game you're watching.
Up to that point, I was doing quite well actually, because the last time I just completely lost the plot, didn't I? After you lost podcast. So yeah, sorry, Ukraine. So Nicholas, are you? I guess you're working now. You've got a few days off.
Working, so yeah. Might get out on Saturday night. I've got into the habit of actually walking uptown at about 6:30.
Yeah.
Having a couple of beers outside the New Malton, sat outside, watching the tourists go by. I'm almost like a unofficial tourist information. People finding out information and stuff like that. But it means also because obviously the New Malton's normally always busy with food. But they have got a few tables outside, so it's nice just to sit in the marketplace, overlook the marketplace, and have a couple of beers. As we've mentioned before, there's normally always at least 3 Yorkshire Ale ales on in there. Although last time there was only 2, so I couldn't have my flight. I normally have a third of each and then decide which one I like the best and have a pint of that. So last week I just had to have 2 pints of, I think we're on Wensleydale Golden, something it was called. But it was nice. And they had a Hambleton Gold on as well, obviously Stafford's Hambleton. So I look forward to seeing what's maybe on this Saturday evening after the football.
Bruce?
No, before the football. The football's 8:00, isn't it?
Football's 8:00, yeah. So you maybe get
so I'll get up there probably about 6:30 and be
so
on by
Bruce,
8:00.
You'll probably drinking gins again, courtesy of the York Bus Company.
No, we're going to go to the Ripon on Northallerton on Saturday to get supplies for half time for the football. Yeah. So if we're going to Ripon, we'll get to go to the One-Eyed Rat on Hallowgate, which is a fantastic pub. And Northallerton actually they've opened a new Wetherspoons, so I might look in I think it's Britain's newest Wetherspoons actually. So you can go to Spoons on Saturday for a change. But I'm torn between going to Ripon for me. So I'm going to Thompson's in Northallerton. Thompson's is stunning butchers. With the super duper new fast trains, now if you get the right train, you go from York to Northallerton for about 18 minutes. And if I take if I take Evie with me, 2 of us can go for £7 on the train. It's madness.
Talking about Wetherspoons, Mike. On the way back up from Cotswolds, we decided to call into Matlock.
Matlock, right?
We thought that's about halfway.
Yeah.
And you know, last time we called in there trying to get the Wetherspoons, it was all closed. Still is.
Right.
Still boarded up. So I don't know what's happening to that, because that must have been closed for over 2 years now, 3 years nearly. So yeah.
Okay, well, I'm booked into the Trentham Craft Bar tomorrow night, so have a few beers with friends. I was in there. It's it's quite a surreal place. You're in a alpine village, which is
Yeah.
next to Trenton Lakes, and it's like, you know, all these little whatever. But the craft bar's great, and in fact, Pete Brown, he won an award sometime this week for it's quite a. I think it was for the book that he self-published. I think it was that craft beer, and he was completely surprised, and he obviously had a good night, and he just tweeted, "Tell me about, you know, what's great about beer." And I said, "Listen, I'm sat in a retail unit in Stoke-on-Trent, and I've just drunk a fantastic pint of it was a full circle beer from Newcastle upon Tyne, and I followed that with a Paulina Munchen Hells. I said, I'm drinking two fantastic beers, sat outside a fake alpine cabin in Stoke-on-Trent. That's what beer does to you. Take it anywhere in the world." So, and I suppose actually, the beer's always on really good form. In fact, the guy, the owner, took me. I had a little tour up last time I was in there, and took me into the cold room and everything. And you know what? Last time, again, weird how you sit down sometimes. We ended up drinking a beer called Mad Cow, which is from the Tappet Brewery in Southampton, would you believe? And this was it was keg, but it was one of those lactose stouts, and it was bloody god. It was just absolutely on form. In fact, we tried all the beers, and we just kept going back to this lactose stout, and it just for that whatever it was a bit of a cooler night. It wasn't as sunny, and we sat inside, and it just was slipping. You know, one of those beers that was just slipping down. Yeah, but I would never go and choose. No, I would normally not go in and choose a lactose stout as my choice, but it was bloody gorgeous. So, and they've got lots of those hazy kind of IPA things, but no, that was.
Yeah, well, once the last
really
time
nice.
I came down to you, we were sat outside. I remember it was a bit of a more than
That's
hazy.
right.
It was a
That's
very
right.
cloudy.
That's
Yeah,
right.
one of them.
Yeah, one of them. What do you like? And then I'm trying to persuade. Well, I don't persuade, but I might have another trip up to Buxton Brewery on Sunday. They've got a Cyprus street food guy doing gyros and Slovakia. So that looks fantastic.
Well, once again, Mike, that's why we decided to go to Buxton instead. Once we realised that Matlock wasn't open, and then found out that the brewery wasn't open.
Oh, the brewery's not
on a weekend,
isn't it? Yeah.
So once again, you'll guess where we ended up.
Yeah, Wetherspoons.
Massive, great building right on the roundabout there.
Yeah.
Which we worked out once again. They had seating outside for 150 people, so it was quite nice and quite safe.
I'm trying to think. I probably, do you know what?
He's moaning now, isn't he? He's moaning now about he can't get his workers from Eastern Europe. The irony, unbelievable. Look, I'm off to the pub.
Don't worry.
Right, excellent.
See you, Bruce.
Good excuse.
See you later.
Yeah, have a good one. See you. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I can't think. Actually, you know what? There is a Titanic pub up in the old marketplace in Buxton. Because Buxton in 2 halves. See you, Bruce. Buxton in 2 halves, and there's the newer town by the spa down the bottom there, and then there's the old town. And
well, that's the railway on the smaller roundabout. That's a Joseph Holt's pub.
That's right. Yeah. That's okay,
the railway
right.
and commercial or something, and they had a nice outdoor eating area. But no, it wasn't a bad day actually. So, as I say, with the furniture as well.
I have promised my missus that obviously the Crescent is now open as a 5-star hotel, and I've looked at a few. I mean, it looks very, very nice. But the beauty is the Buxton Brewery tap, the proper tap, is actually just the back of that, and that's a cracking little old building.
Yeah, but they said that wasn't open either.
They're not opening that at all at the moment. No. It's one of those little. Again, you know, it's a little creaky, cranky little building with you just couldn't do the social distancing. So they're focusing at the brewery. I have noticed that they've actually put tables and chairs in the brewery now. I think they had that spell of bad weather and they learned from that. So you can sit outside or inside. And it's again, you know, it's one of those things. You're next to an industrial estate, you're next to an aquarium retail place as you sit there. But the views are fantastic. And they made a point today saying actually there's no football on at all up there. So if you would just come on and sit and look over Buxton rather than football. So I might try and get there on Sunday. Good stuff. Well, have a good few days back at work. And we'll catch up hopefully next week. See you soon.
Cheers.